Hello and welcome to Weekly News Highlights. Here are the keywords that made headlines this week. South Korea is moving to protect its economy from the Middle East situation, launching a Prime Minister-led emergency task force to coordinate the response. With global oil prices weighing heavily on the economy, the government has vowed to mobilize all available measures, including a sharp expansion of fuel tax cuts on gasoline and diesel. BTS returned to the stage last weekend with a large-scale concert at Gwanmun Square, drawing tens of thousands of fans from around the world. Their new album, Arirang, sold nearly 4 million copies on the first day of release, setting a new record for the group. President Lee Jae-myung has highlighted the importance of a proactive stance to better address the broader potential fallout from the ongoing unrest in the Middle East. Our Blue House correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports.
Devising an emergency response system in a preemptive manner so that the conflict in the Middle East does not pose grave threats to lives in Korea. That's what President Lee Jae-myung has instructed his officials to do, with response measures topping Tuesday's cabinet meeting agenda for a third straight week.
각 부처는 수급 우려 품목을 포괄적이고 꼼꼼하게 점검하시고 또 그것들이 국민의 일상에 미칠 영향 그리고 대체 공급선은 어디인지 등을 세밀하게 파악해서 최악의 상황까지 가져간 대비책을 철저하게.
With global oil prices rising, authorities will update the fuel price cap rule and announce it later this week. The president also vowed to strongly punish any attempts at price collusion, adding that the prosecution has launched investigations into oil refiners.
정유업계도 국가기관 산업으로서의 공적 책무를 깊이 인식하고 국가적 위기 극복 노력에 함께 동참해 주시기 바랍니다.
To reduce private vehicle use on workdays, public institutions will adopt a system limiting use based on the lost digit of license plate numbers. As for private firms, Lee asked them to join the campaign to save energy. President Lee revisited the need to swiftly organize a war response extra budget.
왜 세금으로 지원하냐? 빚내서 지원 또 하는 거냐? 퍼주냐? 왜 지역화폐로 주냐? 뭐 이런 등등의 지적이 있어요. 그래서 이번 추경은 초과세수, 예상되는 초과세수라는 거지 빚내서 하는 거 절대 아닙니다. 그리고 빚내서 만약 초과세수가 없었다면 빚을 내서라도 해야 돼요.
He added the tax revenues exceeded expectations in the second half of last year as the economy started to improve. All this as the International Energy Agency warns of the greatest global energy security threat in history. South Korea is one of the world's largest energy buyers, with the Middle East being a major source. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
South Korea is stepping up efforts to shield its economy from the fallout of the Middle East situation, launching an emergency economic task force. Our top office correspondent Song Yoo-jin has the details.
South Korea is stepping up its response to help cushion the economy against the impact of the Middle East crisis. At a briefing on Wednesday, Prime Minister Kim Min-seok announced the launch of an emergency economic task force.
With the conflict in the Middle East continuing for more than 3 weeks, its economic impact, including energy and raw material shortages, is expanding. The Emergency Economic Headquarters, led by the Prime Minister, is an upgraded and expanded version of the existing Emergency Economic Ministers meeting.
The task force will bring together the finance, industry, health, and foreign affairs ministers, as well as the chairperson of the Financial Services Commission. Each will oversee a dedicated response team. It will support the implementation of key measures discussed at emergency economic meetings chaired by President Lee Jae-myung.
With the emergency economic meetings chaired by the President serving as the top control tower, we will mobilize all available national resources. To support this, the government will respond as one team through the Emergency Economic Headquarters.
It is set to begin operations next week and will meet twice weekly. The announcement comes a day after President Lee called for an emergency response system, warning of growing uncertainty in the supply of crude oil and natural gas amid the conflict in the Middle East.
민생과 경제산업 전반에 발생할지 모를 중대한 위기에 대처하기 위해서 정부 차원의 비상 대응 체계를 선제적으로 가동해야겠습니다.
As part of the efforts, the Blue House told reporters on Wednesday that it is setting up what it calls an emergency economic situation room to work in coordination with the emergency economic headquarters. Headed by Presidential Chief of Staff Kang Eun-sik, the Situation Room will consist of 5 response teams that will oversee their counterparts at the PM-led task force. 송유진, Arirang News.
South Korea has marked a major milestone in defense development with the first delivery of its homegrown KF-21 fighter jet. President Lee Jae-myung called the launch an important step toward the country's goal to become one of the world's top 4 global defense powerhouses.
It was a decade in the making, and President Lee Jae-myung hailed the first delivery of a KF-21 as a symbol of South Korea's aspiration for self-reliant defense over more than half a century.
KF-21의 양산을 통해 마침내 우리 대한민국은 땅과 바다에 이어 하늘에서까지 우리 기술과 의지로 평화를 지키는 무기를 보유하게 됨으로써 자주 국방의 위용을 떨치게 됐습니다.
He was speaking at a ceremony on Wednesday at the Korea Aerospace Industries headquarters in the southern city of Sachon to celebrate the launch of South Korea's new supersonic fighter jet, produced using its own technology. The event was attended by related officials, foreign ambassadors, and private firms.
KF-21의 성공을 대한민국 방위산업 4대 강국 도약을 향한 든든한 발판으로 삼을 것입니다.
The commander-in-chief highlighted the jet's outstanding performance and low maintenance costs. He vowed to spare no effort and investment in nurturing the nation's defense industry and share know-how with its partners.
나아가 협력국의 세계 최고의 무기 체계뿐만 아니라 우리가 가진 기술과 개발 과정의 경험을 함께 공유하여 K-방산의 경쟁력을 더욱 높여갈 것입니다.
South Korea reportedly plans to sign a contract with Indonesia to export 16 KF-21 fighter jets. Since the blueprint was unveiled in 2001, the country officially launched the development project in 2015 and successfully completed its final flight test in January. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
As global oil prices continue to surge, the government is rolling out aggressive measures to buffer the shock. From imposing new price caps for petroleum products to expanding fuel tax cuts and restricting naphtha exports, policymakers are racing to protect both industries and households. And joining us in the studio today is our economics correspondent, Park Jinan. Welcome, Jinan.
It's good to be back, Sujin.
Right, Jinan, so can you tell us about the policies regarding fuel prices that were announced on Thursday?
Well, Sujin, the first thing is the adjustment of fuel price caps on domestically refined oil. 2 weeks after implementing a domestic oil price cap, the government has set new 2-week price caps for gasoline, diesel, and household kerosene in response to sharply rising international oil prices. The gasoline price ceiling rose from the 1,724 won to 1,934 won per liter, which is around $1.29, while diesel increased from 1,713 won to 1,923 won. Household kerosene also went up from 1,321 to 1,531 per liter. Compared to the price cap set 2 weeks ago, these adjustments represent a uniform increase of 210 won across the board. In percentage terms, the ceiling for gasoline went up by about 12.2%, diesel by 12.3%, and household kerosene by nearly 15.9%. Despite these increases, the government noted that expanded tax cuts also took effect on Friday and lasted until May 31st will help absorb even steeper spikes, effectively lowering gasoline prices by 65 won per liter and diesel prices by 87 won. And these announcements came after President Lee Jae-myung held a second emergency economic meeting on the Middle East crisis. Let's take a listen to what Finance Minister Koo Yoon-chul had to say.
In particular, we will place a strong emphasis on stabilizing diesel prices. which are essential for industry and logistics. We will newly include marine diesel under the price cap system and expand fuel tax cuts, increasing the reduction for gasoline from 7% to 15%, and for diesel from the current 10% to 25%, a larger cut than for gasoline.
Also on Friday, the government enforced export restrictions on naphtha, a key raw material widely used in the petrochemical and other industries, particularly in the production of plastics. Let's take a listen.
First, to secure sufficient naphtha supplies, we will maximize imports by providing support to cover price differences for overseas purchases and ensure that naphtha is supplied as a top priority to sectors such as healthcare, key industries, and the production of essential goods.
While there have been brief instances of panic buying and temporary shortages of trash bags recently, the government clarified that there is no cause for lasting concern. Also, the government said it will closely monitor items vulnerable to price fluctuations and provide necessary support.
Right, we will be keeping an eye on the upcoming support measures as well. So can you tell us who are the beneficiaries from this situation? Who are the ones that are forced to bear the biggest burden?
Right, Sujin. So those who benefit the most are major oil companies and their shareholders. Historically, when oil prices spike, global and local energy giants post massive profits. In previous shocks, the wealthiest investors, especially the top 1%, captured a large share of these windfall gains through stocks, funds, and direct ownership. But for most people, an oil price hike is not a good sign. Higher energy costs drive up inflation, slow economic growth, and worsen trade balances. Central banks may have to keep interest rates higher for longer, raising the risk of an economic slowdown amid inflation, a scenario often referred to as stagflation. For Korea, a resource-poor nation with one of the highest oil dependencies among developed countries, every jump in oil prices increases national import costs. At the industry level, the impact varies. Refiners may temporarily benefit by passing higher crude costs on to consumers, but petrochemical, steel, chemical, and transportation companies face sharp rises in production costs. For ordinary citizens, the burden is heavy. Lower and middle-income households spend a bigger portion of their budget on fuel, heating, and transportation. As gasoline and utility bills rise, families cut back on other spending, slowing consumer demand. That is why the government is moving aggressively to contain the impact of rising oil prices. Even a distant conflict can quickly ripple through the economy, driving up costs, fueling inflation, and weighing on growth here in Korea.
All right, Jinan, thank you so much for the wrap-up today.
No worries, Sujin.
BTS's comeback is proving to be more than a cultural moment, with fans driving a surge in retail spending and tourism. Our Kim Jin-young shows us how.
These are characters inspired by BTS members, items that targeted fans visiting Seoul for the concert. Shelves filled with merchandise featuring their photos and names. This is K-Wave, a K-pop specialty store inside a duty-free shop in Myeongdong, one of Seoul's busiest shopping districts.
Items like magnets and puzzles kept selling out, even after repeated restocking. We've also seen a more diverse mix of customers, with more visitors from outside Asia, and the impact extended beyond our K-pop booth to nearby food and fashion sections.
Since early in the morning, fans have been coming in, eager to connect with their favorite artists.
I came to Korea for the free BTS concert. There are many places selling merchandise in Myeongdong, but I prefer this store because it's well organized and has official goods.
Dedicated entirely to K-pop merchandise, stores like this are becoming major destinations for fans visiting Korea. And the impact is visible in the numbers, with a sharp increase in visitors ahead of the concert. Foreign shopper numbers at the duty-free shop rose 32% from a week earlier, while BTS merchandise sales at a K-pop specialty store increased more than fivefold. The impact reached beyond duty-free shops, with spending spilling over into the broader retail sector. At one convenience store chain, sales at 10 outlets near Gwanghwamun nearly quadrupled compared to the same days a week earlier. Stores located closer to the concert venue saw an even sharper increase, with sales jumping more than 6 times. This surge across the retail sector underscores the distinctive nature of fan-driven consumption.
Fan-driven spending is typically more intense, reflecting a stronger interest in Korea than that of general consumers. This demand is also spreading beyond BTS to other products with distinct Korean elements. If the trend continues, it could spread to general overseas travelers through social media, supporting long-term positive spillovers.
Armynomics is now visible in the data, showing how a cultural phenomenon is translating into a tangible economic impact. Kim Jun-ong, Arirang News.
Pyongyang convened the first session of the Supreme People's Assembly over the weekend, where Kim Jong-un was reappointed as the head of the political body. Our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Se-young reports.
North Korea has reappointed Kim Jong-un as chairman of the State Affairs Commission in a leadership reshuffle that indicates tighter regime control. The North State media said Monday that the Supreme People's Assembly, the regime's rubber-stamp parliament, held the first meeting of its 15th term on Sunday. Kim was once again elevated to the top state post, while one of his closest aides, Cho Yong-won, replaced Choi Ryong-ae as president of the Presidium of the Supreme People's Assembly, a position equivalent to parliamentary speaker. Cho was also named first vice chairman of the State Affairs Commission, seemingly sealing his status as one of the most powerful figures in the regime.
By appointing Choi Yong-won, a longtime close aide, Kim Jong-un appears to be placing loyalists not only in the Workers' Party but also in state bodies, tightening his grip on power.
At the same time, Kim Jong-un's younger sister Kim Yo-jong was removed from the State Affairs Commission.
Kim Yo-jong has mainly issued statements attacking the United States and South Korea and is known to have been involved in policy toward both. The absence of her cabinet reappointment may indirectly reflect that Kim Jong-un has no intention of resuming dialogue with Washington or Seoul for now.
The reshuffle also pointed to changes in the military and security bureaucracy. The Second Economy Commission, the body overseeing the planning and production of military goods, was placed under the cabinet. That suggests an effort to emphasize cabinet influence across the full economy, including the defense industrial sector. The Supreme People's Assembly sets out new appointments, legal revisions and budget approval, in line with last month's Party Congress, which sets out the regime's new strategic line every 5 years. The focus now shifts to the remainder of the session and to whether Kim Jong-un's hostile two-state doctrine will further be reflected in constitutional revisions. Kim first laid out the concept at a year-end party meeting in late 2023, when he said the two Koreas were no longer moving towards reunification, but had become two hostile states. Oh Se-young, Arirang News.
On the final day of the first session of North Korea's Supreme People's Assembly, Kim Jong-un officially labeled South Korea the most hostile state, warning of harsh retaliation against any provocation. Lee Seung-jae reports.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has formally labeled South Korea the most hostile state and warned of merciless consequences if Pyongyang is provoked. According to the Korean Central News Agency on Tuesday, Kim made the remarks on the final day of the first session of the Supreme People's Assembly, declaring that Seoul has now been officially designated as North Korea's principal adversary. He warned that South Korea would pay the price for any provocation and reaffirmed that North Korea's status as a nuclear weapons state will never change, vowing continued efforts to confront what he described as hostile forces. The comments came as Kim secured a third consecutive term as chairman of the State Affairs Commission, the country's top policy guidance body created in 2016. His re-election was confirmed during the parliamentary session held on Sunday. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin congratulated Kim on his re-election and expressed hope for deeper cooperation between Moscow and Pyongyang. In a message released by the Kremlin on Monday, Putin praised Kim's role in strengthening what he called a friendly and allied relationship between the two countries, adding that continued collaboration would serve their fundamental national interests. Ties between Russia and North Korea have strengthened in recent years. The two countries signed a mutual defense treaty in 2024, and North Korea has sent troops to support Russia's war effort in Ukraine. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov also said Kim has a standing invitation to visit Russia, noting that Moscow would welcome him once diplomatic channels finalize the timing. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
BTS made its full group return after nearly 4 years. Last weekend, the K-pop superstars reunited with fans at a landmark venue in downtown Seoul in what many called a royal reunion. Our Park Gun-woo reports.
The 7 members lit up Gwanghwamun Gate, the main gate of Gyeongbokgung Palace, snapping a nearly 4-year hiatus in style.
I can't believe the 7 of us are all standing together on this stage today. Wow. We know it's been a long way, right? Thank you for waiting for us.
The group opened with Body to Body, the opening track of their new album Arirang, blending a modern reinterpretation of the traditional folk song Arirang, performed by traditional singers. 7 more songs, including the album's lead track Swim, were performed live for the first time. The group capped the show with hits like Butter and Dynamite.
As long as you're with us, we always do our best to bring you great music and performances. Thank you!
RM, who had injured his ankle during rehearsals, performed with limited movement but showed no shortage of energy.
No matter what happens, we promise to keep swimming together. This is just the beginning. We love you, Army!
Fans waved their light sticks wildly, lighting the night atmosphere while dancing to the music, and some fans even burst into tears. BTS's agency said around 100,000 fans were on site.
It was really fun. I really enjoyed it, and I got to hear new songs from BTS as well as my favorite songs.
Amazing, it's just fun to be like with everybody in Seoul, kind of getting together for a big cultural event.
The concert was also praised for running smoothly and safely.
Everybody knew what they were supposed to do. Nobody was trampling anybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really good.
That was made possible by the help of some 10,000 personnel, including police officers, as well as thorough security checks at multiple entry gates. The event also extended far beyond Korea, with the concert streamed live on Netflix to audiences in over 190 countries, topping the Netflix movie charts in 77 countries. After successfully finishing the much-anticipated comeback show, BTS will now head to the US to remind the world the group is back with more performances along the way before flying back to Korea to kick off the biggest K-pop world tour ever, Arirang, across 34 cities, starting in Goyang. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
In Daejeon, a city famous for its bakery culture, bread is becoming more than just a treat. It's now a fully fledged tourist experience. Our Choi Young-eun was there.
The city of Daejeon has turned its downtown bakeries into major tourist attractions, drawing visitors into a unique culinary experience. At the center of this trend is the so-called bread taxi, a unique ride that guides passengers through the city.
The bread taxi launched last November and gained popularity among bread enthusiasts as it tours famous bakeries around Daejeon City.
이 택시 운행은 어떻게 시작하시게 된 건가요?
I created this service for people who love Daejeon's bread. I hope it becomes a bucket list experience for all bread lovers in Korea, and, if I may be ambitious, for people all around the world.
The driver greets passengers at the station with a big smile, accompanied by bread-themed dolls. Passengers receive a welcome kit that includes a guidebook to Daejeon's bakeries, along with tasting plates, utensils, and wet wipes. Visitors are pleasantly surprised by the menu-style guide and foldable tables similar to those on airplanes. The taxi's first stop is a bakery that's famous for its egg tarts. The driver tracks each bakery's opening hours and baking schedules, ensuring passengers can enjoy freshly made pastries without waiting long lines or missing them altogether.
이 집에서 에그 타르트 다음으로 맛있는 게 얘예요. 피자. 피자빵. 요건 나중에 집에 가서 에어프라이어로 데워 먹어도 돼요.
A stop at one of the city's largest bakeries fills visitors with excitement as they show their passion for discovering new flavors. The driver explains the best menu items at each bakery, along with tips on how to best enjoy and store different types of bread and pastries. He even recommends unique pairings such as ramen and kimchi rice bowls.
네, 조합을 너무 좋아해요.
Passengers savor each combination at their own pace, fully enjoying the experience as they eagerly try the driver's top recommendations.
Once I got on, the driver was so kind. It felt almost like being with family, so I could relax, enjoy the bread, and have a great time.
As a city renowned for its rich bakery culture, Daejeon is attracting more and more visitors with these unique tourism experiences. 조영은, Arirang News, Daejeon.
That brings us to the end of Weekly News Highlights. Thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of your weekend.